Hey friends, welcome to the Brimstone Coaching Podcast. My name is Kurt Busch. I'm here with my friend and co-founder and co-coach, Chris
Mm-hmm.
Godfredson. And we are talking to you from the future after this pod has been recorded. And we just want to pop in here at the beginning and say this pod is a little different. We have two of our really great friends and partners, Chad and Danae, joining us. They are from IMMIX Marketing. Um, and I think what we want to say, Chris, you can add to this, but I think what we want to say is that they have become friends of ours, but they are also really good at what
Yeah,
they do.
yeah, they are.
We cannot say enough about their skill, the way that they work, the way they go about their work, the way they understand marketing, the way they help us who know nothing about marketing. Uh,
Right.
they've just been a real gift to us. So, Chris, what do you want to say about them?
I yeah, I mean, I would echo everything you said, and I want to say, like, they they had a vision, and they wholeheartedly have chased that vision. And I
Yeah,
just have a deep amount of respect for people who are willing to step out and have the courage to pursue the life that they think that they're being called to
yeah,
live and lead. And And as they have made those steps, like they also have been engaging in their own transformational journeys that I think have that work is enabling them
yeah,
to live the lives that they were called to live. And the thing I love about them, and you're going to hear this, friends, is like they don't do it perfectly, but
yeah,
they're trying, right? And
yeah,
um, I just think that there's great value. And we say this often, like when we have people on as guests, like they really are our people.
yeah,
Uh, our
yeah.
hearts beat similarly, and that's part of what makes it awesome. So, yeah,
Yeah, listener, we think you're going to love this. We loved it. We get to have conversations and text with these people a lot to where it's just been really fun to get to call these people friends, and you're
yeah,
just going to get a glimpse of that. But we also just want to say if you or anybody you know are looking for someone to help you with some marketing, we just cannot recommend them enough. So we're going to put a
yep.
link to IMMIX Marketing in the description of this podcast. You can find them there.
Hi, welcome to the Brimstone Coaching Podcast. I'm Chris Godfredson. I'm here today with my friend, co-founder Kurt Busch. Kurt, how's it going?
Good, good.
We're not the
How are
only
you,
ones
Chris?
here, are we? I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, but there's a couple other people here today, aren't there?
There's a couple extra squares on
Yeah,
the
there
screen today.
are.
Yes,
Isn't this
yes.
fun? We're not quite the Brady Bunch, but
No,
there's four.
no.
There's not just us. So we're really glad to be joined today by two friends who we have yeah, grown fond of, and they've helped us dearly as we build out the Brimstone Coaching Group. And our friends from IMMIX Marketing, Danae and Chad, are with us. And I would like to invite the two of you to say a word or five about who you are, and yeah, tell the world who IMMIX Marketing is and who Danae and Chad are.
Well, thanks for having us, Chris and Kurt.
Yeah.
We're excited to be here. I'm Danae. I am a mom and wife of three young adult children. Like, that isn't hard enough.
Oh, not hard at
um,
all.
Add on top of that, I'm an Enneagram 2, which is the helper,
Mm,
and also can sometimes lead to overfunctioning, people pleasing. But I really am put a lot of emphasis on relationships as an Enneagram 2. And I sit on a board. I'm the president of a local nonprofit, and I co-own IMMIX Marketing with Chad. Chad, you want to say who you are, and then I can kind of share about IMMIX, or
I certainly can. I can do the wave too, like
Nice.
wave to everybody.
Hi, Chad.
Uh, so yeah, as Danae said, I'm Chad. So I've been married for over 30 years. And my
Wow.
wife Amy has stuck with me. I put her through a lot. So happy to say we're still here. Got three kiddos, adult, like young adult children as well. Um, Gosh, I started my like kind of career life doing like youth work with an organization called Young Life. Still
Okay.
connected there, kind of like Danae, serve on that board, kind of been the board chair for the last 7 years, and thankfully uh, handing that over to somebody else after a good long run. So that's part of my role in our community. Love being a dad. Like I love my kiddos. This transition out of like being daddy into being in a relationship with adult children. I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll talk about that a little bit more today. A huge fan of basketball. Love bantering with these guys about George Niang on the Cleveland Cavs.
When you
George
say you
Niang is the
guys,
man.
Well, I guess
when
it's
you
more
say,
of Chris.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Kurt
In
likes
previous
some.
pods, Kurt has probably said that he doesn't know anything about basketball.
He likes that. Is that cricket that
That's a
you like, Kurt?
shame.
Yeah. Yes, cricket
Hockey.
actually,
He
Chad.
There's
likes
a
hockey.
ball.
Yeah.
There's a ball in cricket.
I feel attacked.
Oh man. But yeah, my passion for basketball started young. I was born in Indiana, so I'm a Hoosier at heart.
Ah,
Not the best year for the Hoosiers, but yeah, basketball. That's, I love cooking. Like that's actually my creative outlet. A lot of
nice.
days here at IMMIX, you'll find me trying to figure out how to make a lunch for the team using a crock pot and a toaster oven.
Hey.
Yeah, Danae's husband's a pretty good cook too. So I think Danae and my wife Amy are pretty blessed with some awesome cooks in their house.
We're really good
Um,
dish cleaners.
Hey, that's good.
Oh man, like co-owning a business, like I love getting a good outlet, like being outside, like love some sand volleyball. Discovered this sport called volleyball. Y'all know what volleyball is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
That's
best.
an interesting sport. Like who thought of that? Like, hey, let's put a volleyball in a net inside of a racquetball
I
court.
just have to say I'm amazed that Danae knows what volleyball is.
I think I introduced Chad to volleyball.
Oh,
Yeah, she's pretty vicious actually.
There's so many
I've
things
ripped.
that we say that she isn't aware of. That is
I
impressive.
at least every time I go, I rip a hole in a new pair of leggings because I'm diving on the wood floor.
Okay. It's like, hey, this is not sand. That would be hardwood.
Keep Athleta alive.
Yeah.
Listen, you win at all costs. It doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah. That's great.
What do you want to say, Kurt?
Yeah, it's really fun to get to do this with both of you, Danae and Chad. I mean, we've just kind of gotten to know each other over the last 6 months. It's just been a joy. So it's a pleasure to get to pick your brain a little bit. We're going to ask you some questions. I think one of the things I want to start with is just to name how helpful you both have been for Chris and I as we have launched Brimstone Coaching Group. Do you want to say a little bit more about that side of who you are and what you do? Tell us a little bit more about IMMIX.
Yeah, sure. Well, side note, I have been working since I was 13 years old. My mom owned a cleaning business. So I learned really early on of just having a hard work ethic. And that's how like performance was how I earned love and attention. And so, and then I started at this agency helping large nonprofits all over the US doing marketing and donor development work when I was 17 years old. So I was there about 15 years when I went to this conference and just really felt this stirring in my spirit that I was to use my giftings and abilities to serve Akron, which is where Chad and I live. And I came home from that conference and I was like, told my husband, I'm like, listen, this is what I feel. I don't think I have any giftings or abilities. So what do you think that means? And he was like, well, what do you do for a living? And at that time, I was talking with a counselor friend who was really helping me to see that I was actually in a really toxic work environment. And so this is around 2018. And also at that time, I underwent major surgery to donate my kidney, being part of a 3-way kidney swap so that my husband could receive his second kidney transplant. So lots of going on in life. So why not, try and start a business? So
Makes sense.
yeah. So, and about 12 years ago, my husband started his own business. He's an architect. And so, yeah, I just had this like passion stirring up inside of me of like, man, what would it look like to help local organizations that can't afford a large agency, but could use the expertise and experience in marketing and donor development? And so at that time, Chad was actually my boss at this agency we were working at. And so I went to him and I just, because he obviously is the brains behind IMMIX, and was just told him
I thought I was
about
just the eye candy. I don't know.
told him about like what was stirring inside of me and this vision I had, and asked him if he would join me in it. And so yeah, I'll let him tell you his side of that story.
Yeah.
So yeah, a little about me and like the start of IMMIX. So when Danae came with this idea, like basically a vision of like, what if something local happened? Like I was deep in my career. I was like 20 years deep into my career path, and had a lot of exposure to um, learning a lot about donor development and helping with larger nonprofits. And the intersection was curious, but it probably wasn't until I started to realize kind of a little bit of the limitations I was running into in my current career path. There was some friction starting to happen inside the company, and I didn't quite know what to do with it. And again, through some counseling, I was just kind of presented with the concept of like, well, Chad, you've got two choices, how I see it. You can stay and adapt to the culture, or you can leave. And at that point in my life, I probably wasn't even thinking about leaving. It was more like, yeah, this is the path. But in that counseling, I was like, that became really clear. And as I began to then view my life through that lens, the path of what Danae presented started to get some clarity. And I would say that the pain got high enough for me to decide to make a choice. And it's funny how pain comes into your life and how it can be a motivator for change. And it was definitely, I'm not a high risk individual as I look back on my life. And as Danae and I are processing the start of IMMIX, like, she's like, oh yeah, let's do this. I'm like, well, like, what are the calculations for this to work and all that? I mean, it's so
I'm the risk taker. He's the hold on.
Yeah. So I got to the point where it's like I need to jump. Like it's clear the choice is do something else. And we were 9 months into the IMMIX being a side hustle at that point. And I remember going home to my wife and going, I think it's time for me to leave and go after this vision that we've been side hustling around with IMMIX. And Danae and I had a conversation like, I think it's time for me to jump in. Like, I know IMMIX isn't ready for that yet financially, but like, I think I need to go. So that was summer of 19, July 19. By August of 19, Danae had made the jump fully into IMMIX as well. And like, one of the things that came out of that process is like, and we say this a lot, was like, we didn't scheme up the idea of starting a marketing agency. There was a vision and passion kind of birthed inside of Danae to do something. And we kind of claimed that promise and vision, if you will, and go like, we're going to chase that. And like the phrase became like, we're going to chase a vision and see if it actually turns into provision.
Wow, that really resonates. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like that, I think we try to come back to that as much as possible in the difficult days. Like, remember, we never decided to start a company. And so that grounds us at times. We can actually get back to that space. We're not there very often, but many times we try to get back to that space.
I think that's fantastic. Thanks for saying that out loud. I mean, I think that really resonates with us. And I think the people that follow us and have an idea about who we are understand, like, we didn't start Brimstone Coaching Group or this podcast for the sake of building a business or anything like that. We just have this deep desire to help people get unstuck and to understand that there's more to life than white knuckling it and doing all the things. And I guess, as much as anything, that's probably why you're our people. Like, we really feel that that's true. And I think it's a shared sense of purpose that, makes this team work, dream work.
Yeah. Yeah, Danae, you said something that I remember both of you saying early on that hit me so early in our relationship. You said even just now that your goal and hope and desire is to work with organizations that can't afford a large marketing team, and maybe
That's
couldn't
us.
afford right. And I remember you said that, and before we knew each other, I remember thinking like, oh man, that sounds really good, but like who does that? You know, who actually does that? Well, you guys.
Well, I
Uh,
mean, we're basically a nonprofit, even though we are a for-profit, but it's fine. It's fine.
Well, when you unpack it, like we're both Enneagram twos, and like the idea of
Oh,
two Enneagram twos leading a service organization, like we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. Like there's some real
yeah,
roadblocks to that.
yeah. I didn't know you were a two, Chad.
Yeah.
right.
Oh man, yeah.
Oh, I'm like a two with no wing. Like that's how two I am at times. Like,
Wow,
Yeah,
wow.
it's his tuness even annoys me at times, guys. And I'm a two.
And so then, as I understand it, in your two-ness, then like in disintegration, that's when you become the challenger. Yes,
yep,
Mm,
sir.
I
Okay.
yep.
I would
Yep.
say Chad goes to his 8 a lot faster than me. I'm more of like, I'm gonna run and hide.
Mm.
mm,
Mhm.
yeah.
One thing I just wanted to add about IMMIX is as we were just kind of like reliving our story, I just had this like, whoa, I did not know that that day at that conference that I thought God was calling me to like start a business, but actually I think he was setting me on a path of like freedom and healing. And I
Mm.
just was like, to
Yeah,
even think about that, I'm like, what's
Mhm.
like, how
yeah,
kind.
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
Wow.
Um,
yeah. That's really good. That might just be the end of the pod.
thanks to you guys,
Mhm.
the the healing and
Yeah,
freedom for sure.
yeah, yeah. Well, we're super glad that you're here. Thanks for being our people. So you guys know this, and some of our listeners might know this, but we ended 2024 with this invitation for leaders to invest in their own growth. And this first quarter of 25 then is going to be some gentle invitation, or we're going to give some gentle invitation into how to make that a priority. And we just felt like today's topic would be so perfect to have the two of you come on board and talk through some of this uh, with us. Um, we want to talk about some obstacles to this work of investing in your own growth, specifically some external obstacles to our own growth. This work is hard.
Mm.
I suspect that the three of you on my screen would give snaps for that. Oh,
I love the fact that you said that, like, we're going to give a gentle invitation into this thing, because like that phrase is like, if a leader isn't investing in his own or her own leadership development, then they've disqualified themselves from leading. That feels really gentle.
yeah, yeah. I mean, on the surface, no. I
Yeah,
do think it is an invitation.
it
Uh,
is 100%. I'm kidding.
yeah, yeah. More invitation than it is wagging a finger sort of thing. I think that's
Yeah.
true.
I think that's one of the things
So
I appreciate about going back to that podcast from a couple weeks ago. I mean, appreciate
Mm.
about you guys and our relationship is you bring us back to that as leaders of like it's the introspective work that makes you a better leader.
Mm.
Mm.
And like you time and time again bring us back to that, whether it's like one-on-one coaching or like in the group stuff we do with you, Kurt, like you're bringing us back to like, well, is that about the situation or is there something stirring inside of you that you need to
yeah,
work on?
yeah. Yeah, it's
Great.
so easy to get caught into this idea that, especially as leaders, that if we just do the things right, if I could just do this thing better, or if I could just learn this skill, but my goodness, if we're not doing the work of self-discovery, like we're always going to be hijacked when we try to do that thing. So
Mm.
Yep.
yeah, I think that's where our heart beats, and I know it's where your heart beats too. I wonder, now is when we get to ask you guys a bunch of questions. Can we interrogate you
Yes.
a little
This is
bit,
going to be fun.
Chad,
Just like
today?
rapid fire.
Could be. Depends.
Depends how rapid your answer is, I suppose.
Hmm.
Uh, We know, Chris and I know that you both have engaged really deeply into this work of self-discovery and self-awareness. I'm curious, would you be willing to say just a little bit more for the listener, like what prompted the start of that for you? Like why did you begin the work of self-discovery?
I would say it started when we started IMMIX. I don't even know how we found the book, Brene Brown, Dare to Lead. And we would literally meet every Saturday for hours in Chad's basement and just go through this workbook together. Just so determined that the culture of IMMIX was going to be different than what we came out of. And so many of our core values came out of that, like courage over comfort, clear as kind, abundance over scarcity. And I think that really just like laid the foundation for IMMIX in our culture. But I would say probably even a couple years in, we realized that while that was amazing for IMMIX, we needed to do some individual work ourselves. And that's kind of when we stumbled into meeting Ken with Faith Walking, and then Kurt was our facilitator and kind of, I would just say, coach too, like just really learning what it was to be in community. And man, from day one, it was like this amazing, authentic, vulnerable, but like you didn't have that vulnerability hangover like you normally do conversations. Yeah.
IMMIX was definitely the beginning of that, like what Danae shared earlier about like IMMIX was the beginning of freedom and healing on many levels. Like we often say, I can't tell you how many times in the last 6 years we've said out loud how grateful we are for IMMIX, for the vision, the business, the physical location we sit in is actually just a place of healing. And like we even tell our clients like this, we don't try not to call it an office. We actually try to call it a home, and we've kind of made it that way. Someday you guys are going to get out of Iowa and come over to Ohio, where land of the Buckeyes. And
we're going to come to Ohio.
So like IMMIX is just this, it's a vision, it's a treasure, and it's actually part of doing the work. Like this idea of doing something local has ingrained us deeper in relationships. In our old life, a lot of our relationships were virtual, with some on site. And so living in the backyard of the people you're doing work with and doing community and pushes into some of this deeper work. So like we've talked about Dare to Lead, what an amazing like book. Brene Brown's got so much wisdom inside her. We know you guys value a lot of her content too. Kind of the course of like the next thing was like this organization we ran into called Christian Community Development Association. We were walking one of the urban neighborhoods in Akron one day with the local leader, and he was starting to use this language about, well, that's a very similar language we use at IMMIX, and just like this pressing in of what it means to be doing community together. And then like I said, we bumped into like Faith Walking as a client, and we dove into the content of Faith Walking. Then we met Kurt and got introduced to Brimstone, and we try to read books as a team. Like we recently read Strong Like Water. We picked up this new book. It's over here on my desk, called Slow Productivity, about how do we be productive but do it slower. So we try to set ourselves up to be like doing some of this internal work, and IMMIX gives us the space to do that. And so trying to set the right cadence as leaders in our organization of like interior work is not only important, but it's like critical. And we're not masters at it, and we've definitely not arrived. And like every day we do the work, we realize how much more work we have to do. So
So do you two move at the same pace? So it's interesting to me that you're Enneagram 2s, each of you is. But when you think about that and you talk about the pace of play, if you will, how do you regulate that?
Go ahead, Labocki.
Oh man.
Last name.
Go President Labocki.
Yeah. That's a great question. I feel like this is where I need to like confess that like, hi, I'm Danae, and I reached burnout at the end of 2024 because I didn't keep the pace. And I let a lot of my past, I don't even know, like formation come in of like, you work hard and you come to work sick and you miss your kids' games, or you are not offering any value, and therefore your clients are going to leave you. So like reverting back to a lot of that, we lost a couple clients this year, which was hard. And I think like resurfaced a lot of that I came out of from the agency I was at. And so, yeah, I was not good at keeping the pace this past year. And I think I've actually let like the last couple years compile of just like, yeah, having a chronically sick husband, parenting young adults. And my mom almost died during COVID, and all of that. Just like, I just was like, well, put my head down, push through. I got clients to serve, I got work to do. And even like, I'll get like I'll be like checking with Chad, like, hey, how's it going? How's your evening? You know, I'll be like, I'm working. I'll be like, dang it. Like, I'll open my laptop and be like, dang it, if he's going to work and I'm not. Like, like that just like stirs back up and like, why? So yeah, that like constant like striving and earning of that just stirs right back up in me of like, that's how I'll get my love. That's how I'll get my affection and attention, is if I'm performing.
Yeah.
So you have a 3-wing then, apparently.
Yeah.
I think I'm like a 1 and a 3. I have tech for perfectionism.
I'm gonna
and
achieve and perform and do all the things, right? And then there's impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say I'd say we are opposites in that like her go-to will default to productivity, and my go-to will be like team building, connection, like, and so we balance each other at times, and then times it creates tension that you got to work through. Like, yeah, for sure.
He's a 2-wing too, obviously.
Yes. Obviously. Doesn't exist, but obviously. I love that.
She's rewritten it. She's allowed.
I may be curious. You know, Chris will say a lot that we don't have to do this work, right? All this stuff that you just talked about that you began and have been doing since IMMIX started, like, you don't have to do this. Chris will say, you know, we can continue going through life exactly how we are. That is an option. We can, you know, some people do because it's hard. Some people do because they don't know how to do anything different.
It's known.
It's known. I know what the rat race asks of me. I know what my old promises are going to ask of me. I don't know what a new way is going to ask of me. How has it been for you? Like, what would you want to say, like, in terms of how has it been for you, knowing that this is hard work? What would you want to say?
Full transparency, I feel like sometimes I walk away from this work, like on a coaching call with Kurt, and I feel like a knife was just like scraped around my insides, and I just need the rest of the day to process or emote. So it's hard work. It's a lot of self-reflection. And it's even like, you ask the questions that make me look internally, but also make me see just like those around me. So like even opening my eyes to like, man, I am an over functioner and I'm married to an under functioner. Like, and just being able to be like, okay, now what kind of healthy boundaries can I put in place for myself? And I've been over functioning for my kids since they were born. So like, how do I
Isn't that amazing? Like, I had this realization while I was I can't remember. I think I was already facilitating and coaching people through this process when when the ideas came back up around the idea of overfunctioning and underfunctioning, and when there's an underfunctioner present, somebody's overfunctioning. And as I was having this conversation with my wife, and she's running the business that I really started, and I handed off as I transitioned to some other things, and she keeps asking me these questions, and I'm like, you're a really smart person and you're really good at this. You don't need to ask me. And I'm like, well, duh, because I was always answering the questions.
Mhm.
I was always doing the things. I would answer questions for her when people asked her questions
Mhm.
out
Yep.
of my own anxiety, my own stress and stupidity, really. I mean,
Yeah.
and so then like, oh, light bulb, like, oh, now that I see it, I can't unsee it. And I hear that
Mhm.
in
Yep.
what you're saying. And like, yeah, and it sounds awful that Kurt asks this question and it's scraping your insides. Like, why would you keep doing it?
I think what you just said, like once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I think I told Chad when I came back to work in January, I was full of anxiety. I'm like, I don't think I can do this. I haven't rested enough. I don't know what happened to me. Like I was at the point that I barely remembered December. All I wanted to do was go home and hide in bed. Like it was bad. But I realized like I'm 42 years old and I want the next 42 years to be better than this last
Yeah.
year has been. And so something has to change. And I'm at the point where I'm willing to do whatever it is
Mm,
because I don't want to go back to
Yeah.
burnout. That was
yeah.
horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think about even the title of that book. Now I'm going to have to go buy and read that book. Thanks for it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think there's this misnomer
Mm.
with the idea of slow productivity, like, and having no understanding of any of the content. I've never heard of the book until you said it, Chad. But I think the idea of if I take the time and I make the time to understand myself more fully, and if I get out of like meeting with clients, helping them understand what it is to help people fundraise, et cetera, then I'm not doing my job.
Yeah.
But maybe if you get clearer on why you do the thing you do when you do the thing, you might go slower and be more productive.
Mm.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
Mhm.
so how are you engaging that, Chad? What would you say?
Yeah. So for me, a lot of again, the birth of IMMIX for me was a pivotal point in my life. At that point, I was in my late 40s, um, starting to move towards the empty nest of life. And I knew I had created habits in my life that I didn't want to continue into not only the full functioning of the vision of IMMIX, but also like the second half of like marriage and family life. And like
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I had somebody in my life to be like, hey, here's what you've got packed in your suitcase right now that you might not want to carry into the second half. And so
Yeah.
thankfully I jumped into counseling at the very beginning of IMMIX to like,
Mm.
like, hey, I'm looking for somebody to tell me like what happened to me and what do I have inside of me that I want to work on getting out. So that was
Yeah.
for me kind of the beginning of some of that of like, I want to be a different employee slash business owner slash leader slash husband slash dad slash father. So then fast forward, like I said earlier, getting introduced into the faith walking, starting a relationship with Kurt and starting a relationship with Brimstone, like Kurt's role in like the life of IMMIX as kind of our group coach has been significant on like teaching us about like self-awareness as a leader. Like that's part of the thing of like you said earlier about like once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like once you start to understand
Yeah.
self-awareness at its core and like what's really inside of me as a person that impacts me as a leader,
Mm.
as a friend, as a dad, as a husband, like
Yeah.
then understanding like Kurt's been masterful at the right questions of like, what are the things you've promised to yourself based on patterns you grew up with that
Mm.
you don't want to continue to
That's
do? And
such a
like,
curt question.
right.
No, he would start out with, I'm curious.
Yeah, I would. Exactly. So on brand, Kurt. Yeah.
Continue,
Or
Chad.
may I ask you a question about that?
Mm.
No, I think Kurt on the hot seat's good. Let's keep it going.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chad.
He's
But like
red right now. Yeah.
we just so appreciate Brimstone Coaching Group and just like the things that you bring to the table in terms of like helping us be better versions of ourselves. Like this whole idea of like, what are the promises that you've made and what are the promises you want to live by going forward? And like how do you live that out? So not only like believing in your content, but trying to practice the content that you guys teach. So that whether it's digging into the counseling yet again in my life about 6 or 7 years ago, or like the introduction to faith walking or the coaching from Brimstone, or like just our relationship with you two is like the text exchanges we have impromptu, and just the
Right.
check-ins. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
get those texts and I'm like, I do not have time for this right now. No, that's not it at all. I mean, it's opportunities to like, I don't know, because I'm learning from you,
Yeah.
as you
Uh,
are peeling it
Yeah.
back, and you have the courage to be authentic. And I was struck by courage over comfort, as you talked about that early, Danae, in that language. I mean, it really, and I was having that conversation with a couple of people I was coaching right before we started to record today, and like there's impact
Hmm.
on the world if I choose comfort over courage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. So I just celebrate that,
Yeah.
all of the things you
Yeah.
said, and the fact that you engage the work and that we're learning with and from each other. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
a pretty beautiful thing.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, it's a real gift. I mean, it's a real gift to be able to have, Chad, to use your word, a community of people that are engaging in this work together. And maybe even not always together, literally together, but at the same time doing similar work. It just is a gift to be able to share language and share authenticity. It just, yeah, I think gift is the word that comes to mind.
mm.
Do you sometimes feel like you're juggling too many things in your life? Things like your career, family, friendships, finances, or maybe even the anxious situation you woke up thinking about this morning? Hi, I'm Chris Godfredson with the Brimstone Coaching Group, and we understand how overwhelming these feelings can be. And we believe that the first step toward your personal transformation is taking time to reflect on what's really going on. That's why we offer you a free personal assessment to help you evaluate these key areas of your life. Areas like your work, relationships, and what may be causing you anxiety and holding you back. Our easy-to-use assessment is designed to help you reflect on those challenges and to guide you towards a life of contentment, fulfillment, and wholeness. Download your free personal assessment today at brimstonecoachinggroup.com to start your journey toward reflection and transformation. Again, visit brimstonecoachinggroup.com to request your copy today.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here again. Chris and I are here again with Danae and Chad from IMMIX Marketing. Let me just ask an explicit question. I know we touched on this a little bit. Both of you have said some of this already, but it is 2025. Life is at a pace like it's never been at before for most of us. The frantic nature of our schedules, the busyness of our schedules, it's just at a level that I've never seen in my own life, and I hear that from so many other people too. Um, with the idea that transformation is a long, slow process, what are some of the barriers that you run into, some of these external barriers that you run into when you're engaging this work for yourselves?
Good question. I would say the first one is I would say it probably is applied to Chad and I both, but decision fatigue. Like there's a stat out there that says
Yeah.
on average we make 35,000 decisions a day.
Mm.
So then you add in like parenting
Yeah.
and business
Yeah.
owner, and then constant client emails that you have to pivot and answer questions or make immediate decisions, and
Yeah.
managing employees. Yeah, I mean, by noon, I feel like I already have decision fatigue. So
Yeah.
that's yeah, for sure one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like finding the energy to be purposeful. I think I was listening to I was listening to you guys' podcast over the weekend, and Chris, I think you were talking about this whole like realization of like energy is the finite of energy is becoming more and more real. And like that's kind of what I was trying to explain in the whole fuel tank thing, but we'll talk about that
Okay.
another day. Like, but like just realizing, Mike, like for those of you like listening, I'll fill you in. Like my fuel tank can only do so much, and then like realizing my engine is getting less miles per gallon. Like I just
Yeah.
can't produce the same amount each day that I used to be able to, and just like so, like making sure like this finite amount of time and energy, like where am I going to spend it? And if like I really want some of this transformation to take place, and I have to prioritize that over productivity. And like the productivity engine is strong in our culture,
Yes, it is.
in like in just the environment that we live in. And like this, the beginning of reading this book about slow productivity is like, the crazy thing is there was an email in my inbox that I discovered in December when I was cleaning it out that led me to an article by the author of this book, and he was promoting this book on his website. And I'm like, gosh, based on this conversation about burnout and like just some of the like listening to your guys' podcast during like December and early January, and Faith Walking's podcast during December and January, like this realization of like burnout and pace is like there's something going on in our culture. There's an underpinning there that we feel like we've caught that bug again, and like we don't want to keep that bug. So just like this finite energy and capacity and prioritizing has been a big deal for us. And trying like definitely haven't figured out. Like I say, it's one of our goals for this year is like let's lean into this a little bit harder.
Yeah.
I'd say another thing is like you bring your personal life to work whether you want to or not. And so yeah, I mean my husband's on peritoneal dialysis every night, 10 hours a night. And so our room is like a hospital room. And just even the constant, like we got a call a couple Sundays ago of a possible, he's waiting for his third kidney donation. And then 4 hours later, it was a false alarm. So just even that, not even realizing the emotional, just like wheel that's just constantly in the back of your head. And then I would even say just parenting or moving from parenting to trying to be in relationship and figure that out with young adults and the letting go and the grieving in that. Holy crap. Like,
right.
I mean, I am pretty sure I had, within 2 years, I had 2 kids graduate. And I'm pretty sure that also, just even that emotional energy led to my burnout too, of just, it sucks letting go. And it's like, okay, this is a new normal, and making that decision of like, am I going to fight this because I really don't want it, or am I going to embrace it and just really like be relational and present with my kids.
I think, man, see, now I'm going to do it. Danae, can I ask you a question?
Yes, and I'll try not to
Make
cry
it an
because I still think
explicit
crying
one.
is stupid.
Because crying is stupid. You heard it here first, folks. Crying is stupid.
Clearly some work I need to do. That's okay.
You said something so striking. You said, am I going to fight this or am I going to embrace this? And I wonder if you would just say a little bit more about like where did you end up and how do you navigate that?
Oh man. It's probably a lot of self-talk of like, I'm going to stay in the moment and I'm just going to like soak in this moment with my kids where we're at right now and not be living in the past of what was and what I still want it to be, or fearing the future of like what's to come and that empty nester and all of that. And so it's like that constant, like, no, like soak this up because this is where my kids are at, and I just want to soak in every moment of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Right. I mean, because the pre-work, Danae, may not have been able to do that, right? You might not even have been present to the fact that it will be worth my time. I will not regret this if I am present to what's happening in my kids' life right now. I want to soak it in. I'm going to take it all in. And, the work will get done when it gets done. But the performance thing in you that's crying out to, hey, come get to work, get the things done. Like, I can just pat you on the back and say, that's pretty great. Your kids, whether they know it or not, experience you soaking it in. And I think that's great.
Thanks. I don't always do so great at it, but
Well, who among us does? I mean,
progress over perfect, right?
Yep, that's right.
Practice makes
Progress.
Hey. I think Chris and I would be remiss if we didn't just name the gratitude and the appreciation we have for the work that you do. I mean, you own your own business. You've talked about this transition to adult kids and parenting in new ways. I mean, it's inspiring for me to see you both do the work in seasons that are new and hard. And just want to say thanks for doing that. I also maybe just want to kind of wrap up and ask one last question. You've heard us say before that the work that we do at Brimstone has tremendous impact on each of us individually. It has impact on me, it has impact on Chris, has impact on every person that we invite to engage the process. But it really isn't about me or Chris or the person feeling the impact. It really is about the world being changed, right? The transformation goes out from us into the places we live, work, and play. I wonder, thinking about all that you've said about community and how important that is for IMMIX, have you seen this work that you're doing begin to take hold in other places outside of just you?
For sure. One of the things we're trying as business owners is how do you create a different culture? For our team, we write into job descriptions like you are paid a half day a month to go take time alone to be intentionally resting and working on yourself. It's not necessarily a day off.
Yeah.
It's a day of purposefully resting and purposely digging into however you do that, whether that's whatever your mode for working on yourself. And then just the conversations of you can't help but talk about what's going on inside of you, right? It's exciting to grow. To the point where we do this coffee collaboration with our clients and leaders here in our town, and we say hey, we want to bring Kurt and Chris in to talk about this content. This has been so impactful on us as leaders and individuals. Bringing you guys in to do that presentation one day with just leaders in Akron was super beneficial. Are we seeing the impact? For sure. Danae, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
No, I think you said it great.
Well, I always got more to say. I mean, I just think it spills over to just we own a business, but gosh, we're spouses, we're parents, and how this self-awareness bleeds over into those relationships, how we show up with our team, how we show up with our clients, how we show up in the community, the core of getting at who we are ripples out. And so just can't say enough about our relationship with you guys, and this work has been, continues to be, and wanted to continue to be transformative. So thanks for your vision to jump out and start Brimstone Coaching Group.
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I think I just listen, and the thing that is most alive in me at the moment is we have a life to live.
Yeah.
And in that life is is all the things. And we don't get to compartmentalize and just, it's I bring all of me, and this is really at the core of who and how I want to be. I bring all of me, public, private, secret, into as much into the public as I can, as often as I can. And our desire for you, right, and for our listeners is that you're able to be, that we are able to be as much as of ourselves as much of the time as is humanly possible. And if we never do the deep dive or never take a look at why we do the things we do when we do them, we're just going to stay stuck and stop, and we're going to feel exhausted and frustrated and overloaded all the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or at
Yep.
least a lot of the time. And there is impact of that on our
Mhm.
relationships, on our work, all of it. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So I think that this is the invitation. I mean, it's the invitation that we extend to people all the time is Chad and Danae and Chad and IMMIX Marketing is they are impacting their community for good. They're doing good all over the city of Akron, Ohio. And we celebrate that. We give thanks for that. And in all of the ways that we have gotten to partner so far and the ways that we'll partner into the future, I think that will, this is the work. And so we just invite you, friends, listeners, that if you're looking for a coach, or if this idea of experimenting with doing a little self-discovery, self-awareness, if you're a leader and you hear us make the plea that you can't, if you're not investing in your own growth and leadership, then we really are kind of disqualified from leading. Well, we're ready to have a conversation. Friends, listeners, go to www.brimstonecoaching.com and schedule a free inquiry call today. That's the invitation, and the challenge is to begin this transformational journey. So, thanks for the conversation.
I would just attest. You can add this in there that you guys coaching and just being in relationship with Chad and I, it feels it's easy. Like we can just be ourselves and be authentic and be genuine because you guys already come to the table that way. And so if anybody out there is hesitant or is afraid of taking this step, I would say it's 100% worth it. And you will just, you'll be pleasantly surprised at just how easy it is to talk to Chris and Kurt, and just the really good questions they ask, but they also, you realize that they're in it with you. They're your cheerleaders.
Thanks, Danae.